Hello there, P-Cyclozio. Welcome back to the Stanley Parable, Ultra Deluxe. Possibly the last episode. Because I got two things to do. And I don't know after that. Yes. The final input. I must get the bucket though.
Stanley decided to go to the meeting room to check on his co-workers. He never
I'm a
functioned
fool.
well by himself and constantly needed support and guidance from others. So the thought of total
No. I want to get the bucket. I want to get the bucket for this ending as well. The bucket deserves to go with me. Ah. Blows up. It was a pipe bomb. I don't like this. Or do I? Oh, it's hurting my brain to look at. What the fuck is he saying? Did he say baton? They just turn off. Push all the red buttons. No. Does any button stand out like this one? The green ones do, not that one. I don't want to be here no more. I don't know what's going on. Oh. Alright. Even I had enough of that. No, I mean...
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Great. Now I'm a dog. Let me in.
Stanley went around touching every little thing in the office. The bucket made Stanley want to be a better man and a better co-worker. In time, perhaps, he would become both of those things.
Oh, wait. For the other ending I wanted, I can't have the bucket. Unfortunately. Unfucking fortunately. Got the whiteboard ending, though. Now we're back here.
The meeting room. Yes, that's where everyone would be. Stanley just needed to get to the meeting room, and from then on,
I'm sorry,
he would
Bucket.
never be alone ever again. When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, this was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. Stanley felt lightheaded, butterflies in his stomach, giddy in a way he had never known before. Was it this room? A connection between the two? But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left.
No.
Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't 5 years ago. Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here. I'm not your enemy, really, I'm not. I realize that investing your trust in someone else can be difficult, but the fact is that the story has been about... What? Really? I was in the middle of something. Do you have zero consideration for others? Are you that convinced that I want something bad to happen to you? Why, I don't know how to convince you of this, but I really do want to help you, to show you something beautiful. Look, let me prove it. Let me prove that I'm on your side. Give me a chance. Now listen carefully, this is important. Stanley walked through the red door. And there it is, the last Stiggly Wiggly. Savor this
Stiggly
moment,
Wiggly?
Stanley. This is a real accomplishment.
Wow.
This is doing something just for the sake of doing it. Where so many people expect to be rewarded for the most trivial achievements, you've insisted that a job well done is its own reward. I would tell you that I'm proud of you for collecting them all, but that would be like a reward, and we can't have that. So,
Aw.
instead I'll just say, it's done. We're all done here. And now we can go to
Reward
whatever the
enough.
hell you were doing before you hunted for figurines.
Wow. Yep. And I'll go through the red door.
Oh, thank God you are willing to listen to me. Do you see that I really have wanted you to be happy all this time? The problem is all these choices. The two of us always trying to get somewhere that isn't here. Running and running and running, just the way you're doing right now. Don't you see that it's killing us, Stanley? I wanted to stop. We would both be so much happier if we just stopped. And I think I have a solution. Here, let me show you.
What is we gonna do's?
What do we want? What are we looking for?
What's going on over here?
Here. Yes. Oh, it's beautiful, isn't it? If we just stay
guess.
right here, right in this moment with this place, Stanley, I think I feel happy. I actually feel happy.
Wow. Wow. Happiness. Oh.
No, wait. Where are you going? Oh, no. Stay away from those stairs. If you hurt yourself, if you die, the game will reset. We'll lose all of this.
I'll be
Please,
fine.
no, Stanley, let me stay here. Don't take this from me. Please, Stanley. No! Oh, thank God you lived. You had me worried there for a moment. Now, can we please get... No, 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 what are you doing, Stanley? Please, I'm asking you not to take this away from me. I can't go back to what I was before. If you die, we'll both go back. Why are you doing this? Stanley, let's go back to the other room. Can you do that for me? My God, is this really how much you dislike my game? That you'll throw yourself from this platform over and over to be rid of it? You are literally willing to kill yourself to keep me from being happy. Am I reading the situation correctly? Or maybe you're just getting a kick out of it. I don't know anymore.
That's why I do go back.
I just wanted us to get along. But do you actually want to stay alive? Or are you just teasing me?
We'll see.
I wanted us to be happy here, Stanley. I really did. I still thought that was possible.
See, we're all happy here. We're all having a good time. JK, I'm gonna throw myself off a fucking building. It's fucking so slow. Come on. Come on, I must die. My bones. Bones are shattered. Paper skin. Glass bones. This better be it.
Is it over?
Come,
it's going to restart, isn't it? I'm going back.
Going back to something brand new.
Stanley, I'm sorry, but I have to put a pause on things. It's those figurines. Those figglers. I haven't stopped thinking about them since you nabbed every last one. Wasn't it just the most intrinsically fulfilling moment of your entire life? Didn't it fill you to the brim with inner richness? Yes, I know we're supposed to be telling a story, but won't you please indulge me with one more trip back to the memory zone? I would love nothing more than to revisit the figurines. Just one more time.
Wow. The memory zone. The zone with the memories in it.
Here's where it all began. The first collectible. Back then, we had no idea of how many of them we'd find. Sure, it said 6 right there on the screen, but how could we know for certain? We were so innocent. We'll never be like that again, Stanley.
Should I collect it?
And here was a second Stanley. You found this one all on your own, just by poking around in the boss's bathroom. You did that, Stanley. I'll be honest. Back then, I had no faith in you to find any of them, let alone 6. But you continue to surprise me in all sorts of mundane, unremarkable ways.
Wow.
Okay, let's do a little quiz. Which of these rooms was the room you found your third mini-Stan? Can you remember?
It will have to be the boss's office, because I just went to the boss's washroom.
Hey, that's exactly right. It was here, behind the boss's office. It was the third one. You picked it up, and then after that, you had 3 of them. I'm glad these moments are so crystal clear in your memory, but I shouldn't be surprised. After all, science tells us that it's impossible to forget your 3rd time doing anything.
Huh.
Let's see, what came next? Oh yes, we found a Figley in this pink room. Oh well, I can't actually say I remember being in this room, but it's here in the memory zone, so it must have happened.
Yeah. Now my numbers are fucked up.
This was the 5th mini-stand, and this one was really something special. It was in the warehouse. I remember it so clearly. In fact, because this one is particularly special to me, I made a little video to commemorate the occasion. Enjoy.
What the fuck is this? 2004? 2000? I don't know. What's that back there? Aw, shit. It's mini stand number 5. Bottom text. Wow. Alright. You found it near the cargo lift. Thanks for watching. Best boy.
Takes you back, doesn't it? I spent a lot of time making that video, but it was 8 minutes I wouldn't have spent on anything else.
I actually can't walk off.
And then, Stanley, then we came to the last collectible, the final figurine, right here by the red and blue doors. This memory is the most distinct and clear in my mind, perhaps because it was the one that happened more recently than all the others. Who can truly say how the mind works? All I know is that this is the moment where you picked up a Figley and I thought to myself, yes, that's all of them. They're all collected. It was a moment unlike any other. Except for the other moments picking up figurines, which it was exactly like.
Yeah, that.
And then there was no more, because we've caught up to the present moment. Nothing left to do but move onward into the future. Goodbye, memory zone.
What? Ah! Goodbye, anyway.
No, I'm not done. I'm not ready to move on. Stop the loading screen. Isn't there some way we can stay here, keep enjoying these figurines? Let's just go backwards. We'll do the memory zone again from the opposite direction. See how that feels.
I want to fuck it up.
Okay, yes, the room with the red and blue doors. I remember this. I must say, of all the figurines we looked at in our initial tour of the memory zone, this one is the most distinct and clear in my mind. Let's keep going. I want more.
Ominous over here.
And here's where I made that video. Don't you remember the video we watched?
Please don't play the video again. Fuck. Only so it's quick.
Yes, I love that video.
The pink room.
Still don't remember the pink room, Stanley. Still no memory of this one. Good room, though. A solid room.
Pretty solid room.
These really were a treat to hunt down. You know, if there had been any kind of reward for finding all of these, it really would have neutered the intrinsic joy of collecting them. I'm very glad we resisted the temptation. Next one.
Darkness is giving in me. Fine, I'll do it right.
This was our second Figley. Don't you remember? Yes, I remember it too. The past is truly a wonderful thing. Why does anyone ever choose to leave it? Keep going. This is it. The very first one we found in the exhibit where I introduced you to the figlarines. Oh, I want more memories, Stanley. I want to keep going. What else is there? What came before this?
Nothing. Doesn't seem that right. Oh no.
Look, it's the
They still give
terrible
it
new
back.
content that we were originally sold on. I remember hating it back then. But time does put a rosy filter on everything. In fact, I dare say I'm actually quite fond of it now.
I want to go back to the
Look how
infinity
much
hole.
fun the past is. I want more. More memories.
I want the infinity hole again. I liked it down there.
Oh, yes. The two doors. Who could have forgotten that? A classic memory, this one. And before everything else, there was your office. Is there anything else? Was there something that came before your office? There's something I feel I can remember. I can remember.
Hut.
Yes, I'm remembering something now. I remember before this whole story got started. Back then I was different. I used to make big decisions. I was passionate. I was skeptical. I weighed each decision with profound thoughtfulness. And then somewhere along the way, I stopped making decisions. I became lazy. And I came up with a character named Stanley to do my thinking for me. He would make the decisions. He would decide which way to go. I would cheer him on as he collected figurines for no reason. Why did I invent Stanley? Was I lonely? Yes, perhaps that's it. Perhaps I needed to imagine I had companionship.
Relatable.
And Stanley really did make for a wonderful companion, even if he was a fiction. But I suppose it's grown old. I want to think for myself again. I want to go back to how it used to be. Yes, I can be on my own again. I can do it. I'll be stronger this time. I'll take care of myself. I don't need Stanley anymore. Oh, but he truly was so much fun to play with. You know what? Since we're in the memory zone, how about one more good memory? Let's go back just once and give Stanley one more run of the office, and then I'll retire him for good.
Oh.
I did enjoy telling his story so very much. Okay, here we go. This is the story of a man named Stanley.
What was it? The end is never the end, is never the end, is never the end, is never... Is this actually different, or...? Yes. We're not doing that.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
I don't know why I like turning that one off. Bucket?
Not everyone is so lucky to have a bucket, but Stanley is a very lucky fellow. Very lucky indeed.
Working hard, hardly working.
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
I mean, I guess. All the figurines are gone, so this room is back to normal.
Still no one was here. Stanley needed the bucket's warmth and comfort now more than ever. Perhaps his boss's office was where he'd find answers. Stanley, we must move on from this broom closet, simply because I have no remaining stickers.
One more
If
sticker.
I did, you can guarantee we'd be in here for hours. But alas, no stickers.
Just want some stickers, man.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office.
That one. Just a little bit. Alright. I need to find a loop of that for 10 hours on YouTube.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Crushed by the weight of this revelation, Stanley may have broken down into an emotional dumpster fire if not for the soothing presence of the bucket. Even now, in his darkest, but Stanley guessed the correct code by sheer luck. Was it the bucket knew all along?
Yeah,
Was the
definitely,
bucket guiding him? Yes, this is certainly the most logical explanation.
That fucking elevator music is what plays in my head constantly. Either that or Cymbal Monkey. Or a carton of milk spilling over.
Stanley and the bucket walked straight ahead through the large door that read, Mind Control Facility.
Have I ever tried to take over my control with the bucket?
The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley and the bucket both wondered to themselves.
I can also get this ending with the bucket.
The monitors jumped to life, and Stanley nearly dropped the bucket in shock. Everyone in the office was being videotaped, monitored like guinea pigs. The bucket had never seen anything like this, and it very nearly burst into tears as Stanley cradled it gently, reassuring it that everything would be fine. Was the bucket under the mind control facility's influence as well? Had the bucket been told to do things it didn't wish to do? What kinds of things does a bucket want to do or not want to do in the first place? These questions raced furiously in Stanley's feeble mind. No! He screamed into the bucket. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control, never! He squeezed the bucket tighter, his one friend in the entire world. At this point, he could trust no one except for the bucket.
The bucket. This one. I honestly just want to get back to the infinity hole.
But here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions, happy or sad or content. Walking, eating, working, all of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For he and the bucket would dismantle the controls for good. Two best friends, Stanley and the bucket, up against the world. They high-fived in a really cool way, and the bucket made a sassy comment about taking down the system.
But bucket. We are the system.
But at the last second, the bucket jumped in and pressed the button to turn on the controls. Stanley gasped in horror. Had this been the bucket's plan all along? To take over the machine and claim the power for itself? How could the bucket have betrayed him like this? Stanley was prepared to throw the bucket away in disgust when suddenly an image appeared upon the enormous screen. Birds. Silly birds. The control buttons became active again.
Ooh. Oh.
Stanley flipped through one video of silly birds after another, and then it dawned on him.
What silly birds?
This wasn't a mind control facility at all. It was a facility for monitoring and surveilling silly birds all over the world. The mind controls were only a facade to disguise its true intentions. Had the bucket known this all along? Stanley marveled at the metal genius in his hands, the one who had pointed him towards this incredible discovery.
I like that one.
Stanley and the bucket never found freedom because they spent the rest of their lives here in this place, flipping through live streams of the silliest birds imaginable. Of all the possible paths his life could have taken, this one was surely the best. And Stanley was happy.
Silly birds. Oh. What other endings can I do with the bucket? I need to go down to the maintenance area with the bucket.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Bucket.
It takes a lot of humility to carry a bucket so magnificent. Stanley checked his ego and then proceeded onward.
Was that last thing right? With all the papers and shit?
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
Boss is ending, under the stairs.
This was not the correct way to the meeting room, but Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? No, never mind. The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go back to the meeting room.
Let me try one more thing.
No, said the bucket. Don't go to the meeting room. Go somewhere else. The cargo lift, yes. Go there. Go to the cargo lift. But Stanley feared that any path he walked might lead to the separation of himself and the bucket, his dearest friend. So he threw himself to his death, that they might die in one another's arms. How deeply touching.
There's an open door down there. I just want to see that. Oh wait, there's also the bottom of the pit ending. Let me try that one. I don't know why I'm trying to get everything. I want to get back to the infinite hole again. Bucket.
Stanley cradled the bucket in a gentle embrace. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
Actually, there's two over here.
Still no one was here. Stanley needed the bucket's warmth and comfort now more than ever. Perhaps his boss's office was where he'd... Stanley, we must move on from this broom closet, simply because I have no remaining stickers. Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office.
Tempted.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Crushed by the weight of this revelation, Stanley may have broken down into an emotional dumpster fire, but Stanley guessed the correct code by sheer luck. Was it that the bucket knew all along? Was the bucket guiding him? Yes, this is certainly the most logical explanation.
Which one? The fucking pit ending's probably less substantial.
Stanley and the bucket walked straight ahead through the large door that read, Mind Control Facility. The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley and the bucket both wondered to themselves.
Anyway.
But just as Stanley was about to proceed further into the mind control facility, he tripped and fell over the railing and into the dark void below. Thankfully, he fell directly onto the bucket, which safely cushioned his fall.
Yeah.
Now, what to do next? Stanley wondered. Stanley and the bucket could find no way out of this enormous pit, and so eventually they decided that the best thing to do would be to simply get comfortable down here. So they set up a little couch and relaxed. It really wasn't so bad down here, a bit cold perhaps.
Where to get a couch?
After some time had gone by, they installed a few shelves as well, and a sort of kitchenette that was useful for when the bucket was craving paninis. But it wasn't until the rugs and the standing lamps came in that it really started to feel like a home. In fact, after some time, Stanley realized that it had been ages since he had even thought of the mind control facility at all. He'd never gotten to fully explore what was up there, never been able to unearth the many mysteries of the mind control facility. This lack of closure began to eat at him. Soon he was dwelling on his regrets, and the state of their home slowly decayed as Stanley became withdrawn and neglected the cleaning. It unsettled the bucket deeply. Stanley wasn't usually like this. The bucket tried to reach out to him again and again, but to no avail. All Stanley could think about, all he could talk about, was going back, doing it over again, staying on the path. It was a mistake to leave the path. It was a mistake. It was a mistake. I need to do what the narrator says. I need to see the true ending. This made no sense at all to the bucket, which was simply trying to live its life down here as comfortably as possible. Yet Stanley was unconsolable. This isn't an ending. This is just a hole in the ground. The bucket sighed. True, it wasn't an ending. But it's where we happen to be. And maybe, possibly, if we accept the reality of things, maybe this will become an ending eventually. It's what the bucket was counting on. The two of them waited for a very long time.
Very long. Too long. What do you mean by become an ending eventually? What do you mean by that? What if I do it again?
Already this was uncomfortable, and Stanley decided that as soon as he found a new space he felt safe in, that he would never leave it again in his life.
What's going on here?
Stanley's bucket, the only co-worker he would ever truly need.
Working harder working.
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
Why did all the computers have a bunch of words on it? What's going on here?
Still no one was here. Stanley needed the bucket's warmth and comfort now more than ever. Perhaps his boss's office was where he'd find out. Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office. Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Crushed by the weight of this revelation, Stanley may have broken down into an emotional dumpster fire. The bucket did not react, except except perhaps a tiny glow of warmth.
Wow.
Subtle, yes, but an unmistakable spark from somewhere deep within.
Okay, one more. Okay, one more. Fine.
But Stanley guessed the correct code by sheer luck. Was it that the bucket knew all along? Was the bucket guiding him? Yes, this is certainly the most logical explanation.
Running out of things to do here. Like, I want to jump off the edge again. See what happens. See if it's the same. I guess I will.
Stanley and the bucket walked straight ahead through the large door that read, Mind Control Facility. The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horror! But just as Stanley was about to proceed further into the mind control facility, he tripped and fell over the railing and into the dark void below. Thankfully, he fell directly onto the bucket, which safely cushioned his fall.
It seems to be the same.
Now, what to do next? Stanley wondered. Stanley and the bucket could find no way out of this enormous pit, and so eventually they decided that the best thing to do would be to simply get comfortable down here. So they set up a little couch and relaxed. It really wasn't...
I think it's the same. Well, maybe it isn't. If I got to the ending part where it said this is not an ending. But I can't be bothered. It's too late now. Ugh.
The meeting room. Yes, that's where everyone would be. Stanley just needed to get to the meeting room, and from then on, he would never be alone ever again. Is Stanley, without the bucket, really Stanley at all? No, surely not. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left. Still no one was here. Stanley needed the bucket's warmth and comfort now more than ever. Perhaps his boss's office was where he'd... Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office. Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Crushed by the weight of this revelation, Stanley may have broken down into an emotional dumpster fire if not for the soothing presence of the bucket. Even now, in his darkest of hours, but Stanley guessed the correct code by sheer luck. Was it that the bucket knew all along? Was the bucket guiding him?
Always is.
This is certainly the most logical explanation. Stanley and the bucket walked straight ahead through the large door that read, Mind Control Facility. Although this passageway had the word escape written on it, the truth was that at the end of this hall, Stanley and the bucket would both meet a violent death.
We'll be fine. We got each other.
The door behind them was not shut. Stanley and the bucket still had every opportunity to turn around and get back on track. At this point, Stanley and the bucket were knowingly walking forward into a very painful death for each of them. As the machine whirred into motion and Stanley and the bucket inched closer to their demise, Stanley reflected on how meaningless the bucket's warmth and comfort had turned out to be. To be sure, it puts the mind and the soul at ease to embrace the bucket, but what use is a sense of ease when you're about to be crushed to death? This is what Stanley thought to himself, and he sort of kicked himself for wasting so much time carrying a bucket everywhere.
Never.
Farewell, Stanley.
"Farewell, Stanley," cried the narrator, as Stanley and the bucket were led helplessly into the enormous metal jaws. In a single visceral instant, the bucket's life came to an end as it was crushed violently to death.
But
It was a shame, the death of such a magnificent bucket.
yeah.
It's true that all buckets are radiant in their own way, but this one stood above the rest. It was a glorious bucket to behold.
Truly. Wait, where's my bucket? That's a lot of words. The bucket welcomes you to the grand exhibit. You are standing at the precipice of knowledge. Much like a bucket itself, the human mind is frequently empty within, a cavernous void. But through use of the exhibit in front of you, never mind. The mind becomes full and enriched, and substantiated. Knowledge of the bucket and its history is the only true knowledge we really have. Will you take what you learn here out with you into the world? Will you accept with an open mind what may be challenging about the information in this exhibit? Will you change the lives of yourself and your loved ones as a result of this exhibit? Or will you turn a blind eye and continue to live as you were, in ignorance and darkness? Maybe.
Can you see how arrogant it was for Stanley to take a bucket like this and to claim it for his own? Can you see the hubris that blinded him? Can you see that the bucket is far more noble than Stanley will ever be in his short life?
But he's my friend. Holy shit. A bucket with two handles. This bucket is depicted as having two handles. Such a design has never been created in real life, having been deemed too dangerous and recklessly experimental. Every year, dozens are put to death just for attempting it. As they fucking should be. They have their mind. Those words here. 25. I think it's more than 25 buckets. A photograph of 25 buckets, the greatest number of buckets ever captured on camera. The photographer experienced catatonic shock for several weeks as a result of this euphoria from exposure to this many buckets at once. I think it's more than 25. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Wooden bucket. Inferno bucket. Okay. A replica of the Inferno bucket, which in the medieval era was so powerfully alluring that it drove dozens of nations to war with one another for control of it. Billions died, and yet in spite of it all, the simple fact remains: no one can control a bucket. The stress bucket, presented without commentary. Coping strategy. Who's sitting in all these chairs? Oh. Why is this game got so many slappers in it? Cave drawing. While we know that the buckets predate the existence of mankind, we do not know by how long. This cave drawing depicts early man's discovery of the practical use of the bucket, by which time the bucket had already likely been around for several millennia. Notice in these drawings how the bucket is allowing itself to be used, having judged humanity to be worthy of its treasures. Oh, but I'm not? Wow. Wow.
No man can own a bucket, and certainly not a bucket as dazzling to behold as this one. It is man who should kneel before the bucket.
The hanging bucket. This piece symbolizes the necessary relationship between bucket and humanity. However clear our grasp of the bucket may be, there is yet more that is always out of reach. This distance, inevitably, is for our own good. No, it's mine. The leap of faith.
But
It
there
shows
is
my
something
worthiness.
we can do. Something we can do together, you and I, that will right this terrible wrong.
Which is die.
Let Stanley die. Let
No.
him be crushed by the machine. Don't reset the game. Don't give him another opportunity to run off with another beautiful bucket. We can save the world's buckets from their treatment as tools and implements if only we let Stanley die together. The bucket shall take its place as ruler, as leader, as commander of a new world, a new
say
vision
less.
for...
The bucket shall rule. What happens if I actually reset during those? I never do. What does that say down?
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed
bucket,
a
you're
memo.
still here. Good.
As Stanley lifted his bucket, he felt a connection to all buckets everywhere. This adventure, he decided, was for all of them.
Yes. I don't have a lot of time.
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
So I'm going to answer here. Let's try this is DarkSideNick giving you. Next time will be not even sure. We got a few extra things, but the next episode will probably definitely be the last one. Probably. Maybe. See you then. Or not. And God bless.